Hello there, time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us are the Athletics football correspondent David Ornstein and TalkSport broadcaster Shaban Ahern. Welcome to you both. Before we chat, let's quickly run through the Back Pages. Starting with the Express, quick off the marks. This is after Gabriel Martinelli scores just 36 seconds after coming off the bench for Arsenal in their win over Athletic Club. In the Star, also focus on Arsenal. Gab Fab. Arteta very pleased with his super sub. This, in The Guardian, focuses on the other side of North London. Spurs, as they also make a winning start to their return to the Champions League. They win 1-0. OK. Impressive wins there for both Premier League sides tonight in Europe, Arsenal and Spurs. Let's start with Arsenal, though, David. And how impressive was this win on the road? Could have been a tricky tie, but Arsenal got the 2-0 win that they wanted.
I think it was massive, Jess. I think it's two English clubs prior to Arsenal have won against Bilbao at St Mamés in Europe, and so Arsenal become the third side. The atmosphere seemed incredible there tonight in the Basque region, and also the sort of intensity of the opposition. They were all making their Champions League debuts, which is a real rarity. I don't think that's happened with an English side since Blackburn in 1995. And Arsenal, having reached the semi-finals last time round and wanting to go better this season and try and push on and win some silverware under Mikel Arteta, they've invested so heavily. They've added real depth to their squad. We saw that again tonight with the substitutes or finishers, as Mikel Arteta described them, Martinelli and Trossard combining for both goals to make the difference. And Arsenal have a lot of room for improvement still, but that's a fantastic, very important, even lucrative victory with the money you earn for each win in the sort of new format competition. And it also sets them up really nicely for Manchester City, that huge match on Sunday, and they get a couple of extra days over City to rest before playing them at home too.
Yeah, Shaban, we'll talk about the improved squad depth of this Arsenal side, but it was actually an older player that came in and did the job for Arsenal, and Gabriel Martinelli took just 36 seconds after coming on in the second half to get that goal. How impressive was he? Because he's been under some pressure, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that's Mikel Arteta's put himself in this position where he can start to change up what's been an absolutely excellent centre-back pairing for Arsenal. Mosquera's really hit the ground running, and Mikel Arteta said it in the press conference. He said it post-match as well. It's difficult for him to leave the likes of Martinelli on the bench, somebody who's been so important to his side and the job that they've been doing, especially over the last couple of seasons. But to come on and to get a goal after 36 seconds and then to assist Leandro Trossard as well, I think really shows the togetherness that he's got from that squad. He was asked that post-match. He was asked about the love that Martinelli got from the players around him. There's a lot of love and respect and togetherness from this Arsenal side. So really, really impressive. I mean, it did take them 70-odd minutes to break down Bilbao, but in the end, they got the job done. And there's pressure. Let's face it, there's pressure on Arsenal this season to deliver silverware, and that they'll come away happy with.
We have to talk about the squad depth, don't we, David? Because they didn't necessarily have this last season, but they've invested heavily, £250 million in their summer transfer window. 5 of the 8 new signings started the game this evening, and it seems to be paying off for this Arsenal side.
Yeah, it really does. Let's be clear, they've done really well in the last few years. 3 consecutive second-place finishes in the Premier League and the Champions League semi-finals. No other English team got that far, and they should have really gone through against PSG. If it wasn't for Donnarumma, they would have. But they have suffered very severely with injuries and absentees in those 3 years, you could say. And now that seems to be very different, because those that are coming in, Shaban pointed out there, Mosquera, who seems an absolute revelation at, £13 million? A real nod to Andrea Berta, the sporting director in at Arsenal now. And you're seeing that across other positions as well, even in the fullback roles and into midfield, a number of different options. I think it was Norgard on the bench for the first time in Arsenal colours this evening. And then if you go into the positions further forward, you've got Eze starting, and what a signing that could prove to be. It wasn't his best night tonight, but he's made his Champions League debut. The same with Noni Madueke, who had another really good game on the right side in the absence of Bukayo Saka. They've got a number 9 now who's fit and available and causing defences trouble. He's got goals already this season in Gyökeres, and I'm sure he will get better. But a real word of acknowledgement for Martinelli tonight. We've seen the likes of Trossard coming in recent years and doing the job when needed. But Martinelli's essentially lost his place just recently. There has been scrutiny on him, as you say. There was speculation over whether he might have been sold in the summer. Yet what he did in the Bernabeu against Real Madrid with that crucial goal, he's replicated it again tonight with a brilliant run and maybe a slightly fortuitous finish. But his attitude to come off the bench and make such an immediate impact, I think a bit of respect's needed to be put on his name. The way he has responded, and how Mikel Arteta said in his post-match comments that he saw it in his eyes, that he was ready to deliver straight away and that he adores him. So that squad depth could be absolutely critical for Arsenal this season. It may make the difference as they look to make the step up and win silverware.
Put some respect on Martinelli's name, David Ornstein says. OK, let's talk about the other side of North London and Tottenham Hotspur, because they made a winning return to the Champions League as well. Let's turn our attentions to the back of the Guardian, where it says Spurs up and running after helping hand. That, of course, after that own goal from the Athletic Club goalkeeper, Luis Junior. What did you make of this performance, Shaban? Because it's a good result, but performance-wise, was it what you expected to see?
They started well, didn't they, Spurs? I don't know about you guys, but I certainly felt the second half of the game was pretty flat. They kind of ran out of steam. It wasn't quite clicking in the second half. And then you look at the result and maybe the fact that it had to get an own goal for them to win the game. You've got to hand massive credit to Bergvall, though, only 19 years old. And he's becoming a bit of a fan favourite, isn't he, for Spurs? He did create tonight, and it was a huge error from the goalkeeper from Villarreal. And that's why Spurs managed to win 1-0. I expected more from them. I really did, because they started strong. But at the end of the day, they come away with the win, and they'll be happy with that. There's something about this Thomas Frank Spurs side. You know, another win, another clean sheet. Perhaps this could be a decent campaign from the Champions League. If you look at the run of games that they've got, the teams that they're facing, they might be fancying themselves. Maybe they could be dark horses this time. Yeah,
David, we've spoken about Arsenal's strength in depth. Do Spurs have that same quality? Because we saw last season just how many injuries they got and how it decimated the squad and the performance of the squad. Do they have enough right now as it stands to compete in two big competitions in Premier League and Champions League?
Well, to answer your question, have they got as much as Arsenal? Probably not, because they've not invested to the same level. They've not been in the Champions League for as long as them. But they do have some depth now. If you look at the players they brought off the bench, including Kolo Muani, who's a really high-level new signing, Brennan Johnson, who scored so many goals for them, and so on. I mean, it wasn't the most convincing performance, and Villarreal, who are a very good side, did have chances of their own. But to get off to a winning start in a group that really sees them only tested a couple of times later in the competition. You know, they've got a group that they should come through. Optimism will be high at Spurs that they can do well in Europe for the second season in a row. And Shaban rightly points out, Lucas Bergvall, what a talent in his first season. He looks to have got even better this time round. He's only 19 years old. And yeah, they're posing a threat across the pitch. Thomas Frank's made a really good start. I think that's 9 goals scored, none conceded other than that Bournemouth match that they lost. And so, yeah, I mean, they'll expect to go far in the competition, but there are bigger beasts than them and better sides. That doesn't mean to say that they can't challenge them. But the way that they have recruited in their own right this summer, and maybe it's an ongoing process at Spurs because there's still positions that they need to address, but they look in pretty decent shape so far. And in Frank, they've maybe got a more measured style of play than the sort of all-out intensity that we saw under Ange Postecoglou that ultimately, you're right, was ravaged by injuries, and they'll be desperate to avoid that again this time round.
Yeah, Thomas Frank making his Champions League debut. Shaban, do you feel as though we're starting to see his vision and the way he wants Tottenham to play come to life now?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly in the first kind of half hour, the first 35 minutes of the game, you saw that kind of style. They were passing, they were popping the ball about nicely. There was a lot of togetherness from that Spurs side. It did fizzle out, in the second half of the game. What started as a very positive performance started to burn out with Spurs. That would concern me slightly. Again, perhaps that squad depth, they need a little bit more on the bench, more support maybe coming in towards the end of the second half of the game. But at the end of the day, it's job done for Spurs. There were some really positives to take away from that game.
Yeah, there was. On to Brighton and the South Coast they march. OK, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll take a look at more of the sports stories in the morning newspapers, including this in the eye, as Alexander Isak prepares for his Liverpool debut. Arne Slot is defending their summer spending spree. Stay with us. Hello again, you're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to the Athletics football correspondent David Ornstein and TalkSport broadcaster Shaban Ahern. OK, let's take a look at the back of the Star now, because Manchester United never far from the headlines, are they? And in this article by David McDonald, the headline there, Amorim has got 3 games to sort it out, in which he writes, Amorim effectively has 3 games to save his job as Manchester United boss. I think, David, it's fair to say it hasn't quite gone to plan for Amorim, but this comes just a few days after we were hearing from the club and the hierarchy that there were no plans to change Amorim as boss. Has something changed in the meantime?
Well, it hasn't gone to plan is an understatement.
Yes.
Not even a year since he was appointed, and things are looking bleak again. It's a bit of a sense of Groundhog Day. When you speak to people around United, they're very keen and quick to point out that the performance sort of metrics are up. There's a piece by Martin Samuel in the Times that sort of makes a bit of a mockery of that, because it's these results, it's putting the ball in the back of the net, and they're not doing that nearly enough. I think it's logical to understand that this can't continue. I don't know about sort of a set number of games. I don't think United are sort of minded to be changing manager again already, and the cost that would come with that, and the backing that Jim Ratcliffe and Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox have given to their appointment in Omar Barada, in Ruben Amorim. And of course, he came with such a strong reputation, and he's got a lot of fans on side. And when they came back from the US tour this summer, there was a feeling that was articulated to all of us that the spirit's never been better. But then, aside from that performance against Arsenal, which they lost, and let's not forget that, it's been bad. Grimsby was terrible, and pretty much downhill ever since. And so they've got a huge match that they need to bounce back in against Chelsea at home on Saturday evening. And then not too far away is the international break. And you know the jeopardy that many managers who are under pressure face. There's one in October and one in November. And Amorim simply has to deliver now. It's Manchester United. You know, since he's taken charge of the full-time members of the Premier League, Manchester United are bottom of the table, and it's just not acceptable for that club, that fan base, the ownership, and they got to turn it around. Otherwise, you know the fate that will befall any manager at Manchester United if they don't produce.
Yeah, Shaban, David is right there. 10 months in charge for Amorim, 31 league games, just 8 wins from those 31. And in his article, McDonald is saying that perhaps Amorim is losing the confidence of his senior players. If that's the case, writing's on the wall, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you lose your dressing room, you've got a massive problem there. Obviously, there's going to be hard times. It's quite depressing when you look at the results of what they've had. And, you know, you listen to Amorim post-match at the weekend. I am not going to change. This is the way I'm going to play. I think that's the real frustration point we're hearing from the Manchester United legends now, saying, well, you're going to have to change, otherwise you're going to get the tic-tac. So, you know, make your point here. Which one is it going to be? But we're seeing that now from especially managers in the Premier League, that stubbornness, that way that they want to play. And you can't take it away from Ruben Amorim. that's what brought him to Manchester United. The way that he played, what he did with Sporting Lisbon, you cannot take that away from the guy. So it's a difficult one. You know, it's very, very difficult to get it right for all parties. Now, if this article in the Star is correct that he's got 3 games, he's got Chelsea at home, Brentford away, and Sunderland at home. On paper, I think these are winnable games, but it's the winnable games that seem to be causing Manchester United a hell of a lot of problems at the moment. So, as David mentioned there just earlier on, when you hear from people at the club, especially in the summer, the environment was good. You hear reports that Ruben Amorim talks a very, very good game, you know, that he inspires people around him. He makes people feel really pumped up and G'd up. But I think there's only a matter of time before words will start running out. It's got to be actions on the pitch. And if we don't see a turnaround quickly, yes, his job will be under threat. Now, there's a report, I think it's in the Mail Online tonight, that he's got 7 weeks before it's his first year anniversary. And if he's to be axed before his first anniversary, it's a £12 million payout. Now, David, you'll be closer to this than I will be, but that's a hell of a lot of money that Manchester United cannot afford to be paying out on a manager who they've given their trust to. You know, it's going to take a lot of time, so I think they have to stick by him, but maybe he doesn't have to stick by his methods as much, and maybe he could make a change sooner rather than later.
Yeah, just having a look at Manchester United's next 3 games. They host Chelsea. This is, of course, coming off the back of that big loss against Manchester City in the derby. They host Chelsea, they're at Brentford, and then they host Sunderland before the break. Ruben Amorim will, of course, be hoping to keep hold of his job. OK, let's turn our attentions to Liverpool and Alexander Isak. It's been at least 20 seconds since I've mentioned his name, so here we go. In the back of the Times, we're talking about his fitness because he's played just 18 minutes of competitive football this summer because, of course, he decided he didn't want to play for Newcastle in the pre-season. He's only played those 18 minutes for Sweden. There is a chance that he could make his debut tomorrow. David, what are the chances, though, considering that we don't really think that he's match fit yet?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance he'll play a part. I would imagine that would be off the bench, given his lack of football so far. And Liverpool are in a fortuitous situation of having Hugo Ekitike, a top-level number 9 already in the team. And clearly the circumstances around his fitness aren't ideal. They weren't for Newcastle, nor now for Liverpool, and certainly not for him and Sweden, as you mentioned. And it could take some weeks before he's up to speed. And we're seeing the Alexander Isak that we've seen previously. So Liverpool at home against opponents that will be tough, but you would expect them to be beating or at least pushing hard. Maybe that presents an opportunity to get some minutes in his legs. I'd be surprised if he started, given Slot's comments. And, you know, Slot seems to be sort of indicating that bit by bit they'll be integrating him. He's got to get, I think Virgil van Dijk is quoted in the papers as saying he needs time to learn the way we train, the way we press, and so on. And, you know, given Liverpool's attacking options, maybe they've got the luxury to be able to sort of bed him in over time. But they won't want to take too long, given he's a British record transfer, and he and they will want him to be leading the line for Liverpool as soon as possible.
Well, Arne Slot has been speaking to the media, Shaban, and he's had to defend criticism over the fact that Liverpool spent £450 million in the summer transfer window. You can see there in the eye. Slot defends Liverpool's £450 million summer spending spree. Does he have anything to defend? This is all done within the rules. It's all done within PSR. Why does he feel the need to defend himself, Shaban?
Well, from the opinion of football fans, you know, they've spent a lot of money. So that's going to come into question. The thing is, you can't take away in the money that you spent because so far, so good. And the players that he's come in, the recruitment in the summer, either way, whoever's playing, the job is getting done from Liverpool. And what's interesting in those first 4 games, it's taken them after 18 minutes to go on and win those games. Liverpool are a strong side. Arne Slot is a brilliant manager. And I think that he made the comment to the reporter who asked that question about the money he spent. He said, too much TalkSport, bringing up how much money Liverpool have had to spend this window. You know, he comes in, he wins the Premier League at a canter, and he's looking to strengthen now. Ekitike, as David mentioned, I think it's just been wonderful to watch since he's arrived. And now everybody's looking at the drama, the saga that was Alexander Isak, and thinking, can he do what he did for Newcastle and arrive at Liverpool and hit the ground running? It certainly won't be 90 minutes that he's playing tomorrow, but there's a real expectation on him, you know, there is, and I think it makes it all the more exciting. And they've been able to spend this money. He's done it freely. He doesn't have to defend himself, but people expect you, when you're spending that money, to keep on winning. So I'd say there's an element maybe of pressure there.
Yeah, sounds like you enjoyed him taking a little pop at TalkSport there, Siobhan. Okay, expectation on Liverpool. Expectation also on Aston Villa. They haven't started the season the way they would have liked. They did manage to score a goal for the first time this season, but they fell to that penalty shootout defeat to Brentford in the EFL Cup. Before we discuss what's going wrong, let's hear from their manager, Unai Emery.
For me, it's important we improve creating more chances than the last matches. We were defensively, more or less, we were controlling the game. Throw in a few corners they had, because another objective we have is try to concede less corners and fault in getting our box, and we did it. We did overall, we did a complete match in 90 minutes. And if we were being more clinical, the chances we created, even I think we could win. But we had to accept, because we are building the team and we are improving things, and we are as well adapting some players as soon as possible, and even someone getting fit because they need play minutes.
David, I have to ask you, you've got about a minute, but can you solve the problems of Aston Villa here? Because what is going wrong? Last season, they were exciting to watch, exhilarating to watch. What's gone wrong?
Yeah, they've lost their momentum, haven't they? And they've not been helped by the financial troubles that they've had to juggle. It's been a bit of a difficult time there. And then the heartbreak of missing out on Champions League football on the final day at Old Trafford. All the speculation around Emi Martinez and others over the summer, Ollie Watkins. They've kept the nucleus together, but they just need to get a result. They'll need to bounce back against Sunderland. They've then got Bologna in the European competition. And need Ollie Watkins to start firing, and Morgan Rogers and John McGinn, who did play well tonight, to step up and get them back on track, because it's been a really difficult start. They're off the mark in terms of a goal, but still need a win, and that looks like it's quite hard to come by at the moment. OK,
Siobhan, you've got about 10 seconds or so. What's gone wrong with Villa? Can they reel it back?
PSR, I think, is just a nice, simple way to put it. You know, they've been hampered by that. Yes, Ollie Watkins, I think, has been an issue there as well. Perhaps maybe Unai Emery shouldn't have dropped him in that Champions League game. Perhaps he's lost his momentum as well. But I think Villa can bounce back. Yeah, Unai Emery's an outstanding manager, and we know the job that they can do.
Siobhan, David, thank you very much. Siobhan Ahern and David Ornstein joining us on Back Pages. And coming tonight, if you want to see anything that you've missed on the show, just download Back Pages tonight as a podcast. Tomorrow night on Back Pages, we'll be with guests Carl Anker and Martin Ziegler. That's from 10:30.